Positive reinforcement. Any stimulus that when presented after a response strengthens a response.
So Mariah, what's positive reinforcement?
Well, unless you finish that chapter, you can't get your phone. So we'll see what you do next.
All done.
There you go. Nice job.
Yay!
Negative punishment. When you withdraw a desirable stimulus.
Anyway, and I was like, Becky, oh my god.
Amelia, you didn't finish reading your chapter.
Excuse me, I'm on the phone.
You have to finish reading this book for school. Give me the phone.
I don't. I'm a senior. It's okay.
No. I need that phone. Here you go.
No,
you gotta finish reading. I'm sorry.
I want my phone.
After you finish reading.
There are two main components in operant conditioning, reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcers make it more likely that you'll do something again, while punishers make it less likely. Reinforcement and punishment can be positive or negative, but this doesn't mean good and bad. Positive means the addition of a stimulus, like getting dessert after you finish your veggies, and negative means the removal of a stimulus, like getting a night of no homework because you did well on an exam. Let's look at an example of operant conditioning. After eating dinner with your family, you clear the table and wash the dishes. When you're done, your mom gives you a big hug and says, "Thank you for helping me." In this situation, your mom's response is positive reinforcement if it makes you more likely to repeat the operant response, which is to clear the table and wash the dishes.
As a graduating senior, I have found it to be increasingly difficult to manage my workload this year. Not because I don't understand it and not because it's too much, but because I simply can't put forth the effort. I've gotten into college. I know where and what I plan to study. I even have the stuff for my dorm room. I've set myself in the mindset for next year and as a result, cannot focus on this school year. My family has noticed this and the Peyton administration has noticed this from the senior class as a whole. And as a result, disciplinary actions have been established and reinforced. Things such as suspension, inability to graduate, etc. I guess you could say that's what's inspired us to do this topic, because senioritis is something nearly every senior in high school experiences at one time or another. However, instead of just studying the effects of negative punishment, we thought to also observe the effects of positive reinforcement on test results across all high school grade levels.
Positive reinforcement is generally more effective. What's difficult, I think, is being consistent with it. So making sure that you reinforce those behaviors, and a lot of times what works the best is, I'm always looking at behaviors if we're looking at academic performance or something like that. The same thing though, rewarding for you did a good job, congratulations, and hoping to eventually kind of taper that off. So, when you were a little kid, we gave you congratulations and good job and A pluses and stickers on your papers, and you don't get the stickers on your papers anymore. And A is reinforcing enough for you now, and so we want to taper off those reinforcements as the years go by.
We then decided to test this out ourselves.
So the basic setup of our experiment was to gather our test subjects in groups of 4. We ran 9 trials total, 3 where we rewarded the test subjects with Hershey's Kisses, and this is our positive reinforcement treatment, 3 where we punished them by taking the candy away, so that's our negative punishment treatment, and 3 where they didn't receive anything for the test. In our experiment, the independent variable was the type of treatment the subjects received, and the dependent variable was their score on the IQ test. Our procedure was to pass out the tests face down first. Then we would explain which treatment they would receive. For punishment, this is when we would give them their 10 pieces of candy. They then started the test and had 4 minutes to complete it. At the end, we graded the tests in front of them. If they had punishment, we would take away 1 piece of candy for every 2 questions they answered incorrectly. If they had reward, we would give them 1 piece of candy for every 2 questions they answered correctly, and for control, they received no candy. From our graph, you can see that negative punishment was the most effective for highest test scores. The positive reinforcement treatment was second, and the control was least effective for high test scores on the IQ test excerpt. However, these results are not statistically significant, meaning there's not enough evidence to conclude that there really is any difference in performance between these three treatments.
2, 1.
Thanks, guys. After reviewing our data, we were surprised that negative punishment worked in our case. Many of the students performed better when negative punishment was applied. This was surprising because after talking to our school counselor, many times negative punishment backfires and many students begin to stop caring. But in our case, it ended up working, and we wanted to know why.
We decided to take away prom. That was, something that, because of something, prom was taken away. And so at first he was a little upset, and then finally was like, well, that doesn't matter anymore. I don't care about prom. So they changed the way, and so it's not a punisher anymore because they changed the way that they think about it. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, in your experiment, if you maybe they start with 10 Hershey Kisses and you take away a couple and they're like, okay, well, this kind of stinks, and eventually you take away, they have like 2 left, and I'm like, fine, I'm not even going to try anymore because those Hershey Kisses aren't important to me anymore. So they change, you risk that,
We were curious to see what happens once people have taken everything you have that you cared about away. What happens if people don't reinforce you anymore and give you those gold stickers or give you that A+, or give you that pat on the back? What ends up happening to people?
There was a behavior that was unwanted, and so we took away prom. And say he does that again, and now we take away graduation or something, or the senior luncheon and things like that, and all of a sudden he's decided, well, I don't really care anymore, this doesn't matter, and becomes really disconnected from school, and that's something that we don't want to happen. And so we want to, reinforce, say he behaves for 2 days in a row or something, we want to maybe, if he sees computer time as reinforcing, then we want to give that to him so that maybe the next 2 days he'll be that way, and we can increase it that way. Okay. So can you see how you're much more likely to get your wanted behavior by using the reinforcement, mm-hmm. as opposed to just keep taking things away, because it causes some emotional problems for students too. They start to become disconnected. Typically in the schools, so I don't have as much exposure to long-term negative punishment. That's something that we use in a case, maybe if we have like a kindergarten student or something who's biting or punching or something like that, and we want to decrease that behavior. And again, we're going to replace it with another behavior that's positively reinforced at the same time. So while we're decreasing the one, we're increasing something that we want. And so as far as, long term, it's really not something we want to use long term. And to be honest, neither is excessive positive reinforcement either. Eventually we want that to be internally driven, that we want you to want to earn that A as opposed to need all that other stuff.
So remember that positive reinforcement should allow us to become internally driven. We shouldn't be afraid to give each other a high five once in a while. However, negative punishment should be something we should be careful of, because if you take something away from someone so much, they may become disconnected.